This is Mike from the Action PC Community website. Hopefully this time the video will work because I've tried this 2 times already, so if this doesn't work, I'm not going to do it again. So I've been asked to show how to cut whole images out of a master course image. So here I have a course image. There's 2 layers. One is the underlying the whole imagery for the entire course, and the other image is the lie layer that is directly over. So now let me just triple check that the alignments are okay, because before they weren't. So on my lie, I'm just going to select a couple bunkers. So I'm just holding down Shift and then my magic lasso. Magic lasso in Photoshop selects all the pixels of a certain color. So now I'm going to go back here, and now I'm going to make my lie layer invisible. So now I can see that. So basically this shows that all the area that's highlighted with the outline, the person who created the lie has indicated that this should all be treated as bunker. So again, for me this isn't exactly perfect, but it's good enough, I guess. So I'm just going to work with what the person gave me. So here we go. So we have our master image. So what I do first is, again, there's this concept in Photoshop of image interpolation. So if I go into Preferences, General, you'll see there's image interpolation. So what this means is when you work with an image, like you rotate it or resize it, if you select nearest neighbor, that's going to use full pixel value. So all the pixels in the image will be a full color. There will be no blurring. If you use any of these other ones, it adds interpolation, which is like a blurring between pixels. Now, whenever we work with this lie layer or the slope layer, you always want to make sure that you're dealing, and if you're doing any sort of rotation or movement of it, you always want to make sure that image interpolation nearest neighbor is on. So what we're going to do is we're going to work with this lie layer first, and we're going to cut out our first hole. This is the back T, this is the green. So we're going to go into our image selector, and we're going to select an area that's actually larger than the image. So this is large enough to deal with this image. And now with only this layer selected, invisible, I'm going to Control C to select it, and now I'm going to paste it into a new image. Now if I pasted this into a new canvas, the size would be 8079 by 5255. I want to make this the next highest of these 2 values, the next highest 1000th value. So for instance, 8000 is greater than 5000. I want to go up 1000 from here. So I'm going to make this a nice even 9000 by 9000 square. So this is my new canvas, and from here I'm just going to paste, and when I paste, it's going to center my selection in the middle of that. So now from here, if I select Control T to transform the image, now I can rotate the image however I want. See how there's this little icon here? So what I do from here is I want to make sure that this whole image is oriented as horizontally as I can, make it. Now this actually doesn't look too bad. I'm going to rotate it just a little bit, because the idea is that the approach shot, which is the shot where you're hitting the ball onto the green, so for a par 5 would be like maybe the second shot or even the third shot. Typically I try to just do it so it's like the second shot, so your tee ball lands wherever, let's say in the middle of the fairway, wherever this middle is, it should be as horizontal from here to the middle of the green as you can make it. So for me, I want to kind of rotate this a little bit this way. So I just hold down the left mouse button and I'm going to rotate it. So for me this looks good. For purposes of ease, see this, so I rotated 2.2 degrees. I'm just going to make this a nice even number, so I'm going to go to the nearest whole number. So in this case I'm just going to make it 2, and now I'm going to select this to commit the rotation, and now I have a nice little file here. I've already done this more than once, so that's why the value was there, and I just create something like this. So now this is just saying, okay, I've rotated hole 1 2 degrees. And the reason I'm keeping track of this is if I ever need to go back in the future and work with this, and let's say I start adding in slope layer on top of this, instead of having to redo everything from scratch, as long as I have the rotation image, I can cut out this whole thing again. And work with it. As long as the rotation of the image and the size of the image hasn't changed, it'll all fit. So I won't have to basically like redo anything, and everything will align perfectly if I need to work with it in the future. Alright, so now we've done the lie layer. Let's go back and do our whole image layer. So now I'm going to select bicubic for image interpolation, and now I'm going to make this invisible, and I'm only working with this layer. So now I'm working with the actual image. And again, without touching anything, you see how I still have my selection. I'm just going to Control C to copy this selection. So now I'm copying the underlying whole image part of the image. And I have an old PC, so this takes a few seconds. And I'm going to go back to my new canvas. And I'm just going to hit Control V. So now it's still going to center directly. And you'll see that as it pastes, it's not going to be directly aligned. See how this isn't completely aligned with the lie layer? So now I have to hit Control T again while this layer is selected, the one I just pasted. And now I'm going to change this to, I had 2 degrees. So I'm just going to, in here, this is my rotation. So see, it says rotate. And I'm going to change this to 2 degrees and then click this to commit this change. So now both of my layers have been rotated 2 degrees directly centered on the center of the image. So now if I zoom in and let's look at, like, let's say the green, for instance, or the bunker. It's usually bunkers are good, greens are good. So I'm just going to select this, and let's select my 3 bunkers and my green. And now when I click on this layer, and you'll see that the outline should match exactly perfectly. So if it doesn't, that means the person who did this lie layer, it's not an exact one-to-one representation. So for me, like, this is a little bit underdone. So like part of this, if a ball lands in this pixel where my, let's change to this cursor, if my ball lands in this pixel, and it really only matters if you zoom in, we're sort of splitting hairs, but if the ball lands where the pointer of the tip of this pointer is, the game would read this as being in the rough, even though on the image it looks like it's in the bunker. So again, that's why, like, you have to be super careful when you're doing the lie layer, that it should sort of match the image as closely as possible, or else people could potentially complain that it doesn't match. Anyway, so here we go. So what do I have now? So now I have this. Now we're not quite done yet. So what I like to do now is make my lie layer selected, and I'm going to go in, and now I'm going to basically cut this hole out into my final whole image orientation. And I like to use the aspect ratio. So for my selection, I can specify an aspect ratio. I like to use a 3:2, so 3 wide by 2 high aspect ratio. And what I want to do now is try to find like the middle of, so here's the back tee, here's the green. So I want to select an area about in the middle, and from here I'm going to hold down the control button and then start dragging outwards. And now what this is doing is it's creating a 3:2 selection on the area that I've selected. And then what you want to do from here is make this so that, like, the end of the box and the end of the thing are in the same thing. So like when I do it, and this will take trial and error, you may have to do this a few different times until you get it right. So if I do it from this point, you'll see like the corner of my, the right edge of my selection is at the end of the green, but the left edge is nowhere near the back of the tee. So that means my starting point has to be further here. So I keep doing this until I can kind of get it the way I want it. So let's keep trying. So it's still not, my selection is still not centered properly. So let's try here. Alright, so this is pretty good, right? So we're close enough. So now from this point I expand beyond the green. The reason we're doing this is obviously like everything that's in now going to be inside of this image is what's going to be in my final whole image. So the reason why you want a little bit beyond the green is if someone hits the shot beyond the green, you don't want it to go completely off the image because then the game doesn't know how to handle it. So there needs to be enough area behind the green. So to me, this is plenty of area to allot for long shots. Also, the other reason you want to do this is if in the future the course ever sort of, and again, this varies highly based on which course you're using. If the course ever expands the hole, like they add a brand new tee box, you can potentially, as long as your whole image is large enough, you can digitally add the tee to your photo without needing to redo everything in your whole image. So for instance, as long as, like, let's say they added a new tee right here in the future at some point, if working with this image, we could do this without having to redo everything from scratch. If your whole image isn't big enough, you can't do that, and then you have to redo everything from scratch. Okay, so what do we have now? We basically have our selection out of this new canvas. So now we're just going to crop. So we do image crop. So what this is going to do is going to cut out all the stuff that's not inside of this selection. Okay, so now we have our final whole image. Now there's just one more thing. So now I like to layer them in as the following. I put the whole image on the bottom, the lie layer here, and now I'm going to just add a brand new layer. So I'm going to do layer new, and this is going to be my slope layer. And now for now I'm not going to add anything to it. But what I do like to do is I'm just going to basically just mark off the corners. So just while this one is selected, I'm going to pick some, nice bright color that I'm going to be able to see later on, and just mark off the corners. And the reason we're doing that is when I work with the slope layer later, any changes I make, it'll easily paste into the full size of this canvas. So now I'm just going to do save, and then in Photoshop it's going to save. It's going to save as a PSD file, which is like the package file. I think it's called XCF if you're dealing with GIMP, so that's fine. So I'm just going to call this whole one. Whoops, let me do my spelling right. So this is whole one, and then click OK. So close this. So now if I reopen, just to show you for illustration purposes, so now whenever I'm working with this file in the future, you'll see that I have this file and it has these three separate layers, right? There's the whole image, there's this lie layer, and then there's this empty, for now it's an empty slope layer that later I'll fill in. So that's it. So now you do this for the other 18 holes on the course, and then once you have these 18 PSD files, you'll basically open each one, and this is where you'll do your sloping, right? So when you have your both of these visible, right? Your slope layer visible and your underlying whole image visible, but make sure you select the slope one because that's the one you're going to be working on. And this is where you would add in your green sloping, your bunker sloping, your fairway sloping, and whatnot. And that's pretty much it. And then when you save each layer, what I do is, I think in GIMP there's this concept of export. So think of export and save as basically the same thing, but in Photoshop I would do something like I would select just the whole layer, or just the whole JPEG layer, and do since this is the only one visible, if I do file save as, and then we'll call this whole space 1 JPEG, and I do quality 9, that's sufficient. It's a large file, it doesn't need to be any higher or lower than this. It actually goes up to maximum, but there's no real gain in value. It just makes the file size way bigger without providing much of anything in terms of the quality of the image. So I saved just the JPEG of the whole, and now I'm going to save just the lie layer of the whole. So now this gets saved as a PNG, and this is whole space 1B for the lie layer. And again, in GIMP, I think you would be using export as instead of save as. And now one final time with just the slope layer selected, I'm going to do file save as PNG, and this is now whole 1C PNG. Alright, so let me close this whole thing now. So now what do I have? So now if I go into open, you'll see that I have my PSD, which is sort of the package file for all 3 layers of that whole. And now I have just the whole image, just the lie layer, and just the slope layer. So these are the 3 files that get copied into the CDK sports data golf courses blah blah blah, whatever your course name is, folder. So these are the 3 files that will actually appear there. Later on, as you're working and filling out this slope layer, then you'll just, it's basically just copying and replacing the blank template file that you have in there. And that's pretty much it. So again, the concept is to make sure whenever you're dealing with this, whenever you're dealing with a solid pixel color layer, that you're always using image interpolation nearest neighbor, or it may be called image interpolation off in GIMP. Image interpolation on probably means like the blending between the pixels. So Photoshop and GIMP have different terminologies. You can just Google to see what the difference is, but again, general idea, whenever you're dealing with the lie layer or the slope layer, you want to have solid pixels in place whenever you're rotating. If not, then things get pixelated and they get weird. So that's it. So let me know if there's any questions. Hopefully this helps. Thanks. Bye.